If you've sold more than $600 on Mercari or any other secondhand selling marketplace this year, you've probably gotten an email like this, asking for your social security number to get your money and continue making sales. It's important to know why they're doing this. It's because Uncle Sam now assumes that if you have collected more than $600 online, you're making a profit. And of course, he wants his cut. But what you may not know is that platforms like Mercari, eBay, Tradesy, Etsy, pretty much all of the big ones are actually very opposed to this new mandate. Now in this video, I have a special treat for you because I am speaking directly with Mercari's head of public policy to get the very latest about what is going on in Washington D.C. with this law, and if we can expect to see any changes before the end of the year, which means that maybe you might not have to deal with that new 1099K reporting requirement.
We've spent a lot of time and energy trying to convince policymakers of how unfair and complicated this policy is making life for a lot of people.
And if you're new to my channel, you might be wondering, what does he mean by unfair and complicated? I thought that all of the sellers were supposed to be reporting everything and paying taxes on all of their sales. I've heard that a lot, and it is misinformation in the reselling community. Not everybody who is reselling things on Poshmark, Mercari, eBay actually is making a taxable income. Let's explain that a little bit deeper.
Previously, we were collecting tax information from just a very small sliver of our highest high volume sellers. And now, as we discussed, if you bought an iPad last year for $1,000, you sell it this year for $700, suddenly we have to collect your social security number and report it to the IRS so that you can explain to the IRS that you earned income, which is not even taxable.
So understandably, the group of people that doesn't actually owe any taxes faces a complicated time ahead because they are possibly going to have to prove to the IRS that they didn't actually make money on these sales, which is a process that's definitely not clear cut. I tried to call the IRS earlier this year, well outside of the busy tax season, and I still did not get any answers from them.
I'm going to get you transferred over to the right department.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I had a question about the new 1099K reporting requirements.
Speak to the next representative, okay?
Okay.
We estimate your wait time to be between 30 and 60 minutes.
How may I help you today?
Hi, I have a question about the new 1099K reporting requirements.
Like a self-employment is usually Schedule C, so I'll transfer it to tax law people to explain all of this to you.
Okay, thank you.
We estimate your wait time to be between 15 and 30 minutes.
Because the reporting threshold is now for anyone who makes over $600 in a single sale, many more people are going to be getting these 1099K forms.
The size of our 1099K reporting that we're used to jumped about 14 times. I mean, the sheer volume of users impacted by this change is extraordinary. Hundreds of thousands of Mercari users alone, and across the US, I think it's tens and tens of millions of people.
So as we are close to the end of the year, I wanted to give you an update on this situation. Tim is working with the Coalition for 1099K Fairness, which I interviewed in a previous video on my channel. And if you haven't seen that, I'll kind of catch you up to speed. That coalition is hoping to raise the minimum reporting threshold from $600 up to $5,000. So that means you would have to make $5,000 on a single platform in order to automatically get this 1099K reporting requirement. So they were actively involved in Congress, working with some politicians to try to get this through, and they really wanted to get it through before the end of the year. So here is my interview with Tim about how that is going.
The original goal was to get this changed before the end of the year. How does that look right now?
Well, it's not looking good. We're about 2 weeks away from the end of the year. There's always hope. I think we have a big challenge trying to get it done. That's not to say that we're letting up. We're talking to policymakers every single day. We'll be working with Congress right until the last minute. But I think that the window is sadly closing on us for the year.
And what happens next if the window does close and you don't see any kind of change made?
Yeah, we'll be back at it January 3rd when the new Congress gets sworn in. Thankfully, thanks to the work of the coalition over the last several months and years, really, I think you would have a hard time finding a member of Congress at this point who doesn't agree that the $600 threshold is far too low. I think that, well, I know from members who have signed on to legislation on both sides of the aisle to increase the threshold, that we've got a great base of support, again, in the House and the Senate from Democrats and Republicans alike. So we will be making sure that this is at the absolute top of everybody's agenda once they get back into session in January. And we just have to hope that they'll act quickly. Unfortunately, it may not be fast enough for the upcoming tax season, but I think given the experiences that we've heard from our users that we've helped relay to policymakers, I think we stand a really good chance of seeing this transaction level raised to a more reasonable level in future years.
And I'm curious too, I know that the coalition was asking for people to sign the petition, get involved, write their local policymakers. What kind of response have you gotten from that at this point?
Yeah, we've gotten a fantastic response, and that's really the single most effective thing that any user can do is just share your experience and your thoughts directly with your elected official. We have a webpage through the 1099K Fairness Coalition, 1099kfairness.org, where you can easily fill out, a few lines, and it'll generate a letter or an email to your member of Congress. We've gotten hundreds of thousands of excellent replies that way. So policymakers have definitely heard from their constituents on this. And every bit helps. At the end of the day, they are answerable to their constituents, to their voters. And, nobody wants to make tax season more unnecessarily complicated. So
what would you recommend to make sure that they're not paying too much money in taxes they don't owe?
Yeah, I think that unfortunately for a lot of people, it's going to require some extra attention on their tax paperwork this year. To be clear, Mercari and I cannot give tax advice. We're not qualified to do that. But one of the serious concerns that we've shared with a lot of policymakers is that at Mercari we are a lot of our users are individuals. These are not businesses. These are not established large entities. These are, moms in the Midwest selling some used school clothes or whatever the case can be. These are not people necessarily with sophisticated tax compliance operations. And that's one of the real problems that I think policymakers failed to consider when they reduced this threshold so low. So, I'm just encouraging everyone, obviously check your records carefully. The IRS Taxpayer Advocate has a great free website for anyone having specific trouble, but it's going to be a tough year for a lot of us. And it's another area where I would encourage everybody, again, to, let your elected officials know the increased added layers of complication that this is causing for you, especially as we've said, if you're reselling, personal consumer goods, items that you've had for years, in a lot of cases, you're not going to owe any taxable income on the proceeds of those sales. So it's a tough issue. And I encourage everyone to keep making their voices heard with Congress and, reaching out to more trained tax professionals to help you through the process.
Not everyone can afford a tax professional, and that is the very unfortunate part of this legislation. This is the part that really concerns me. A lot of people say online on the reselling platforms, just consult your tax professional. I don't have a tax professional, and I know a lot of other people do not for various reasons. So we can just hope for the best. There are some great resources out on eBay's website. They've partnered with a tax preparation company that has kind of put together a blog post that does break down some of the more complicated topics that I think could help some people. I'm going to link that down below. And I did talk to Mercari about how this will impact the reselling community as a whole, because it will. Don't be stupid, it will, and I'll be reporting on that in the future. But for now, thanks so much for watching this video. I will see you next time.